22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not afraid to say it.
And are not afraid to say it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You are tuned into Black Westchester Presents, the People Before Politics radio show. We're on every Sunday, 6 to 8, streaming live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. For all of you on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button at the bottom so you'll get all the alerts when we put stories and videos up. Welcome everybody who's just starting to LinkedIn is just starting to catch in. We're starting to get viewers on LinkedIn. So welcome everybody who's tuned in from LinkedIn. I am, of course, your host, AJ Woodson. My partner in crime, Damon K. Jones, may or may not be here. He's been running around between work and promoting the new book. So I'm not sure if he will be on today, but I do have my brother, Robert, Dr. Bob Baskerville in the place to be. Say what's up to the people. Say what's up to the people.
AJ, what's up? What's up, everybody?
So today we have a very special guest coming in around 6:30ish. He's doing some stuff with the family, so hopefully he'll be in around 6:30. Bill, and I forget his last name, and I hope he forgives me. But more importantly, he was the analyst on News 12 election day coverage, which is a beautiful thing. He also used to be, I'm not
Serratore.
sure.
I think that's how you pronounce his last name.
Serratore. Okay, and he also was the Mount Kisco Democratic Committee chairman. And he also was a candidate for the Westchester County chairman position in this last race to replace Reggie Lafayette. He will be our guest and our special political analyst as we do a little election recap. Real quick, there was a lot going on in this election. We had a couple of firsts, a couple of historical wins. Locally, we have Vivian McKenzie, who is the first African-American woman mayor of Peekskill, and the second Black woman to lead a municipality in Westchester. Of course, the first was Sean Patterson Howard here in Mount Vernon. We had Lakeisha Collins Bellamy, who is the first African-American and first woman of color to be elected the Yonkers City Council president. And not too far, right next door from Mount Vernon, we have Vanessa Gibson, who is now the first African-American and the first female ever to be elected Bronx Borough President. And of course, we had friend of the show, Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams, who will be the second Black mayor of New York City and the first vegan mayor of New York City, maybe the state. And I don't dare want to say the country because I'm sure there could have been other vegan mayors, but definitely he is the first vegan mayor, period, in New York City and maybe New York State. So we're going to talk about all that. We're going to talk about all the races. One thing I will say, warning to all Democrats. The Republicans are coming. The Republicans are coming. And they definitely showed that in the last race. And we've also had a couple of people threw their hat in already for governor. Attorney General Letitia James, the New York City public advocate Jumaane Williams, who ran for lieutenant governor and almost won against Holcomb, and someone we all familiar with in Westchester. Some of us glad he's gone. Rob Astorino has officially thrown his hat in, and we will talk about why that is not a good idea. But we will be discussing all of that in our election recap. Dr. Bob, I know that you wanted to discuss something real quick. I'm going to toss it over to you real quick and let you take over.
So, I mean, as everyone recalls, this week was filled with high drama and anxiety as Democrats wrangled endlessly with one another trying to pass the infrastructure bill that the Biden administration has proposed as part of a twin bill to redevelop and rejuvenate the American economy. And one of the questions that must be on everyone's mind is how, in concrete, practical terms, this might benefit me and my community broadly defined. And I was reminded of one benefit, AJ, when I stumbled on news of recent report that was released by a public advocacy group that focuses on environmental issues that issued scorecards for the quality of West water in municipalities across Westchester County. And out of curiosity, I looked up. Now, I should say that we know in Mount Vernon, we have been plagued by inadequate sewage system now that is not only backing up into people's basements and causing them all kind of problems, but in additionally spewing a lot of toxins into our local waterways. And so one way that the infrastructure bill was passed last week can help is, providing desperately needing funding. I know that the last estimates that were put out by the mayor and her advisors is that this is going to be a multi-million dollars, and it's going to cost tens of millions of dollars. I thought my estimate was almost probably like 40-something million bucks it's going to cost to renovate Mount Vernon's sewers and bring them up to regulations. So in any case, I stumbled on this report and I figured everyone would be interested in it. I'm just going to share my screen, AJ.
Absolutely.
Very quickly. Oh crap, what happened to the other problem? Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. There's some item of information that's missing, but I'll still share my screen and invite everyone to take a look at the broader report. I'm just going to show the figures for the city of Mount Vernon. And so here we go. This report, everyone, was issued by the EWG, Environmental Advocacy Group, that did a review of survey water. I think in municipalities all across the United States, there is a report. It covers from January 21st to March 22nd. I'm sorry, I may be misstating that. It's a rather recent report. It includes all Westchester municipalities, and I didn't have an opportunity to review a report of each of the 25 municipalities in Westchester, but of the handful that I did, they all came back with rather alarming results. Mount Vernon there's a total of 19 contaminants that were found in Mount Vernon's drinking water. And of those contaminants that were detected, 9 of them exceed the legal limits. So this is just another reason, one of many reasons. I'm sorry, everyone, I didn't want you to see my spreadsheet. This is one of many reasons that Mount Vernonites, people all across the Westchester County, let out a cheer for the passage of the infrastructure bill. No matter how disappointed one may be in the ultimate number, I think the true benefit is going to come in providing us the funding that's necessary to mitigate some of these major crises that we're facing. And so that was just one of them, and I wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. If folks are interested in taking a look at the report themselves, I'm going to include in our chat bar the web address, and I'd urge everyone to take a look. My sense, I also want to stress everyone, my sense is when I did take a look at some of these, I tried to not to limit myself just to the major cities where African Americans, persons of color tend to be concentrated, but to also take a look at some of the better off municipalities in more remote areas. And I found at least the 1 or 2 that I looked at, it was the same basic findings. Unacceptably high levels of contaminants, and contaminants that exceeded the federal guidelines, in some cases by several hundred. I just don't have the numbers handy, everyone. You're going to forgive me. But that's one thing that I wanted to share.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what's up. Yeah, this infrastructure bill, we're going to get into that at another time, but evidently it is officially passed now. But Bill, Bob?
Yes, so the infrastructure bill is passed. Everyone should know that progressives, including like AOC and including our own Congressman Jamal Bowman, had insisted that both of the bills, the infrastructure bill and the Build Back Better bill, which focuses largely on our social infrastructure, be passed at the same time, partly as a result of the panic, I think, that the Democratic Party flew into following Terry McAuliffe's defeat in Virginia. I think there was a renewed effort to try to pass it, and so the 2 bills were severed. So the first bill passed on Friday morning, I believe. My understanding is that President Biden is going to hold some sort of signing ceremony where supporters of the bill, including the 13 Republicans, I think, who crossed party lines to pass the bill, will likely join in the celebration. Yeah.
Luis said, as you speak, I am boiling water to put in my Brita because the water tastes horrible over 2 months, and I do not know what changed. Oh, do not know what changed. She is in Greenberg.
She's in Greenberg.
Yes.
Louise, can you give us your zip code? I just want to take a look while we're online. And as a matter of fact, everyone, I realized if I had just scrolled down, we would have actually seen a detailed breakdown of the 9 major contaminants in Mount Vernon's water. Thank you, Luis. We're going to check it in a minute. The 9 major contaminants and the levels at which they exceed federal safety guidelines. And you can see that amongst them, the first one reported is arsenic. There's 409 times the recommended amount of arsenic in our local water level. The legal limit is 10 parts per billion, and the latest test recorded that there were 1.64 parts per billion. That's over 400 times in excess of the allowed levels. You can see in almost all of these instances, everyone, the levels of contaminants are well in excess of what the federal government recommends. All of these contaminants have been linked through various studies, including those that have been accepted by our EPA as harmful to human health in numerous ways, both carcinogenic and also, everyone, I think that one harmful consequence of our reliance on a lot of these chemicals whose effects is often unknown is havoc that is being wreaked with the endocrine system of human beings, and a growing fear based on some rather provocative evidence that it may in fact be disrupting the human reproductive cycle. In other words, toying with people's sexuality, because some of these chemicals essentially they're known as endocrine disruptors, and they mimic our endocrine or our sex hormones like testosterone and estrogen. So everyone, this is a very important finding, and so I'm going to see if I can actually, and everyone, it's a lot here, including recommendations. So let me see, I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment, and let me see if I can at least see if we can come up with something here. Let's see. And so, Brother Woodson.
Yes.
What else, Brother Woodson?
So, I do actually, we got a few minutes before Bill comes. So I wrote an editorial. I want also, and I'm going to then do something on a lighter note though. I wrote an editorial, this week. I was very, I've been very frustrated of the state of affairs in Black politics, the state of affairs of a lot of things going on in the county, and especially the state of affairs in the city of Mount Vernon. Mm-hmm. And I wrote an editorial, and I put it on our Black Westchester has a brand new official Facebook page. Everybody please go like the page and follow us on there. But I wrote this open letter to Mount Vernon, and I didn't even put it on the website. I put it directly on the Facebook page. I wanted people to get it directly. I didn't want you to have to click on anything. It's a little lengthy, but I think it's very timely to what's going on right now. And I got a lot of responses, even from the mayor, who said it was a good read. So basically, here's my open letter to the city of Mount Vernon. It's part 2 of a editorial I wrote, Mount Vernon, Divided We Stand. Okay, so I took a brief hiatus, and while I watched what unfolds in 2020, I wrote an editorial in January titled, Mount Vernon, Divided We Stand. Then I watched quietly over the next 10 months to much criticism. I'm going to solo my screen. Here we go. To much criticism. I have been quiet about what's going on, so much so that everyone has something to say about my noticeable silence to all the dysfunction that has been going on. Well, once again, it's time to break my silence and get a few things off my chest. As in part 1 in January, I stated that one thing I've learned during the entire Mayor Davis administration, at the end of the Mayor Davis administration and the entirety of the Thomas administration, is when you talk all the time and write about everything that's going on, even when you present the facts, people will eventually stop listening. So I stopped. I decided to speak less and make it count when I do. If ever there was time for some real talk, that time is now. Like I said, I was criticized for speaking up on everything. Now, over the last 10 months or so, I've been criticized for not speaking on everything. My phone rang and rang, wanting to hear what I thought and what I had to say. So since I will be criticized no matter what approach I take, let me share my thoughts. I have a lot to say, but let me say this before I go on. All I ask is that you read the entirety of this before you criticize. And as I said, I posted directly on Facebook. We have a lot of things wrong in the city of Mount Vernon. And to prove my point that I've once said, things haven't gotten any better. The perception of the city in the county and in the state haven't gotten any better from my remaining silent. People used to always say that, I made the city look bad by speaking up on everything. Um, yeah, I'm going to solo my screen, Bob. While there is a lot of good going on in the city, and I've tried my best to highlight, Bob and I both have tried our best to highlight as many of the good things going on as we could, but I really say to the readers and to the residents, you barely read them when I write them. We cannot move forward if we don't have these difficult conversations and address what is wrong. And to those that will continue to sing the choruses of how I make the city look bad by writing about what's wrong, you cannot make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. Things do not get better by burying your head in the sand and not speaking about what's wrong. If you do not want me to write about your dumb shit that you're doing, then stop doing the dumb shit. Quote from Damon K. Jones. Lastly, before you cheer me on, because I'm calling out something or someone you currently don't like, there's enough blame to go around. And that goes for the residents as well. But I will get to that at the end. Now, and I say this out of love for my city, there isn't one institution in the city that is running smoothly without dysfunction, finger pointing, scandal, corruption, alleged corruption, calls for federal intervention, division, lawsuits, and even a few federal investigations and indictments. Before any residents cheer me on for calling out the leaders of the city and the elected officials, you too are the problem. To you, I say, you get the government you deserve because you get the government you vote for. Let's start with City Hall. Let's start at the top. In February 2019, Mayor Sean Patterson Howard ran on being the candidate that can restore Mount Vernon to its prideful reputation and bring healing to the city of Mount Vernon. But after 2 years in office, which did consist of a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, the dysfunction in City Hall continued. United we stand, divided we fall is a phrase used in many mottos and most often to inspire unity and collaboration. In the city of Mount Vernon, we do things a little differently. It's more like divided we stand. Much like it is nationally and federally in the country. But the difference is it's not the Republicans and Democrats in Congress governing like Bloods and Crips. It's the Black Democrats that can't get along with other Black Democrats to move the city forward, pun intended. This is a Black-run city. You cannot blame the white man or the Republicans. Black Democrats run this city. And if we are honest with ourselves, the city has been on the decline for a while. So much so that you have no idea how many people, and I mean Black people, that I've heard say, maybe we should let white people run the city. I am not the only one that's being told these things, that's hearing these things. A former mayor of Mount Vernon just told me the other day that he's hearing that as well, and it's a very dangerous thing. We just had an election, and the candidates that ran on the United ticket by the name of Mount Vernon Forward, the mayor campaigned hard for that ticket and for Darren Morton for controller, as hard as she did for herself in 2019. To the mayor, I say, you've got your chosen candidates. In 2022, there will be no one else to blame. Deborah Reynolds was a problem. So we heard some council members were a problem. Well, they will all be out of office on December 31st. Like you told the residents when you ran, you were the candidate to restore the city when you ran in 2019. In 2021, you told us that with these candidates, you can do the job you promised us you would do. there will need to be a reasonable short period of time to get everything in order, identify the problems, and put a plan together and do what you promised you would do, get the city back on the right track. People shouldn't expect miracles on January 1st. I will give you that. But the truth of the matter is, there won't be much time to start making things happen. I wish you well, because your success is the city's success. Now, as I've told you many times personally, I wouldn't trade places with you for all the money in the world. Black Westchester and the residents of Mount Vernon will be watching eagerly to see what you do. To Danielle Brown, Ed Poteet, and Caitlin Gleason, all year long, you three told us, the residents of Mount Vernon, if we voted for you, you would make it happen. You are inheriting a mess, and there will be no easy fix. But we, the residents, are hoping and praying you will end the civil war in City Hall and work together with everyone to do what you promised, and that was to move Mount Vernon forward. Everyone who has sat in the seats you will sit in all told us before that they can work with everybody in city government to get the job done. Will you three be the ones to get the job done? We do not want to hear any more about what your predecessors did not do, or did wrong. All the residents care about is results. Because you are inheriting a mess, you probably won't get a traditional grace period, usually allotted. The residents just want to see results, and that you can all work together with everyone else in city government. To Darren Morton, I say you may have the hardest job of them all, but hey, you too ran, that you're a candidate who can get us back on track. Probably won't get a big grace period for you either. There probably won't be a big grace period for you either. While many have given up on the city, I wrote this in hope for a future. I wrote this with hope for the future, but that can only happen if all our elected officials work together for the betterment of the city. The problems have been highly documented and publicized now. It's time for action. Now, one thing that hurts the most, me personally, is the state of our beloved library. Now, I've been quiet up to now, but damn, where do I start? We have alleged financial malfeasance and mismanagement, calls for a criminal investigation. We have 4 elected Mount Vernon library trustees that couldn't vote for a 5th member to appoint to replace the one who resigned before the deadline, after which the state would come in and take over the board. Instead of writing about it, I called all 4 trustees to see how we could move forward, to no avail. The conversation was a bust. Eventually, they finally agreed on a 5th trustee to sit in until the election. But that was also a well-drawn-out drama. Then you have a trustee, the former board president, accused of serious crimes against young boys and some staff members. A civil suit, possible criminal investigation, and calls for this individual to step down, even by some of the other board members. I stop right now to say I believe that there's going to be another press conference and rally one day this week, maybe Wednesday, calling for this particular individual to step down. Just to make my point, which I found out afterwards, going back to the piece. Then the library has lost its not-for-profit status. Employees have worked for years without a contract. Do you know most other municipalities don't even think about how their library is run? Because it just does. But ours is in the press, and it's really ugly. But some say I'm the one that makes the city look bad by talking about it. Well, in my silence, many others were talking about it publicly, to the point that one organization had a press conference and filed a complaint calling for the district attorney to investigate the library. Oh, I guess this is the flyer for
Yeah.
Okay.
Just briefly.
Where else do you hear mess like this? Nowhere. We have got to do better. We're hurt so much, even our library isn't run without drama. What else have we had recently? Senseless gun violence. City employees indicted of federal charges stemming from PPP fraud. That was highly publicized. And from what I hear, the feds are not done. Who will be next? We are in danger of losing our hospital. I saw a recent town hall meeting with the Mount Vernon City School District where several parents and members of the community had complaints about how the school district was being run. We have a few corrupt cops who keep making the news, a whistleblower who had been retaliated against, leaving myself and many others saying, damn. We do not have one institution in the city of Mount Vernon that is not dysfunctional. But residents, before you cheer me on, this wouldn't happen in any other city because the residents would not allow it. You are the ones with the power. And my silence came when I got frustrated that many of you were unwilling to speak up and demand better. When is the city as a whole going to be sick and tired of being sick and tired? Yeah, my phone rings with complaints, but you were unwilling to even write a letter to the editor and put your name on it. You call Black Westchester, say your piece, and then follow that up with, you didn't hear that from me? Oh, you didn't get that from me? You call me and complain, and I haven't said anything about this or that. You call me to complain, I haven't said anything about this or that. But I say to you, when are you going to say something? The moral of the story is it's going to take all of us for things to get any better. And let me tell you, while many have given up and tell me not to waste my time, we may not be at the point of no return, but we're getting pretty damn close. We have to lose everything and have our city taken over before we step up and speak out and demand better. Like I said, there is enough blame to go around. Everybody has a part to play. Before I hear anyone complain about anything else, I ask everyone, what are you going to do or are willing to do to move Mount Vernon forward? We must stop all the fighting just for the sake of fighting and start fighting for something. We must stop attacking each other because we decided to support different candidates. And our elected officials in office, and to our elected officials in office and those who are coming in January, you need to stop campaigning. You won the race. Now we need you to govern. To the residents, politics is a participatory sport. Your job is not done because you cast your ballot. You cannot vote and then go to sleep until the next election. You, too, must be engaged. I wanted to share that, and then I'm going to break that part of the video up and share it just separately. I wrote that this week as an open letter to the city of Mount Vernon. It was written out of frustration. Everybody kept saying, oh, you won't speak about this. You won't speak about the library trustee because you're his friend. I'm not sure where they got that from. You won't speak about, we're cool and we're cordial and we're affiliates, but, I don't throw the word friend around too often. And there's not too many people I could call a friend a friend. And my friends do know me that if they do wrong, they too will hear it and it will be written about. That includes my pastor and everybody else, anybody. So that is not the case. But I kept getting these calls. AJ, you're letting the controller get away with this. AJ, you're not being hard enough on the mayor. AJ, you're not doing this. You're not doing that. When I did, I was told that I was being an obstructionist. I wasn't giving the mayor a chance. I was accused of attacking the mayor when I wasn't even attacking the mayor. So I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I wrote that editorial, and it was an open letter to Mount Vernon. Bob, any words or thoughts?
Yeah, so for one, as I showed briefly, it is Jesse Van Loo and the Save Mount Vernon Coalition that is calling for people to come out to the Mount Vernon Library on this Wednesday, the 9th, to call for the board.
Wednesday's the 10th, isn't it? Today is the 7th.
I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. Yeah, thank you, man. And I'm going to share it again.
Yes, Nas. Mount Vernon drama is draining. Yes.
Come to the Mount Vernon Library at 12:30 on Wednesday, November 10th, to attend the meeting of the Board of Trustees and to demand that the Board of Trustees follow the best recommended practices with respect to allegations of the kind that were lodged against one of its trustees. I'm going to say I too know the trustee. I'm not eager in any way to persecute anyone unfairly. However, this is a very serious allegation and it cannot be swept on the rug and people cannot simply ignore it. I want to say to the sitting members of the Board of Trustees, should you not follow the best recommended practice, that anyone who was subject to similar charges would find themselves having to deal with a suspension, something restricted role until a full investigation has been conducted to determine the veracity of the charges, then any of the other institutions that I were part of that took such a decision, the leadership would be booted immediately. Immediately. You have a responsibility to protect both the employees and patrons against the possibility of hostility in the workplace. And I know that is not a pleasant chore for you to confront because, yes, this person is beloved by many in the community of Mount Vernon, notwithstanding the seriousness of these charges. And friendships must be put aside. And everyone must put on their professional hat and do the right thing by the community as a whole. If you don't, everyone, I have to say this, because several of you said this, AJ, several of the trustees who have oversaw the Mount Vernon Library in recent years have been elected by the voters to go to higher office. And I would suggest that you earn the voters' trust to do the right thing, because this is not a controversial action that is being asked to be taken. So, I guess I'll leave it there, AJ. I did want to. Can I just share for Louise? I'm sorry, I found.
Yes.
Yeah. So I wanted to quickly share the report. Louise Cherico provided us with her zip code up in Greenberg. And so the name of the group is the Environmental Working Group. And again, they did a test of the water in all Mount Vernon municipalities and found
Westchester.
I'm sorry, Westchester. Thank you, AJ. And found that they were all had high levels, dangerous levels of contaminants. And you can see here in Greenberg, they've got a total of 23 contaminants that were detected in the latest test, 11 of which exceeded the EWC guidelines. And I did read through Louise's comments, and amongst other things, she noted that her daughter, unfortunately, has been suffering medical problems, which might possibly owe to the unusually high levels of contaminants in our drinking water all across Westchester. And you can see, everyone, that these are quite excessive levels that of these contaminants in our water. At the low end is 2.8, and at the high end it's over 789 times the recommended amount.
So Bob, you started something, right? So Michelle Brown said, do mine, 10520.
All right, I feel useful now, y'all. Let's see. And again, everyone, I'm going to include the link. AJ and I will distribute it to you guys so that you can look it up yourself, take a closer look. Maybe you'll call your local representatives. I hope I got that right. Did Michelle's 10520?
Yes.
10520. And even here we have Michelle. I hope I'm being fair here. It seems like, oh, well, Croton on the Hudson, I want to say, is one of the more well-to-do municipalities in Westchester. I hope I'm not misrepresenting things. That's my impression. But we can see even there that the contamination levels are unacceptably high. A total of 13 contaminants, 10 of which exceeded the recommended EPA guidelines. Again, starting from a low of about 2.3, all the way up to nearly 100 times as high the recommended levels of trihalomethane. And everyone, if you want to know, I'm sorry, just one last note. And so if you want to know why the infrastructure bill that just passed yesterday is so important, I think this is one piece of evidence amongst many that Westchester residents should point to.
No. And again, Michelle, the link was put up earlier. It's on the screen now, ewg.org. And everybody can go there and do just what Bob did, put in their zip code, and you will find out what is in your water. Louise said, horrible. Oh my God, I can see her eating habits change. I have been concerned. She said, thank you, Dr. Bob. Nas Duncan says, I don't drink it or cook with Mount Vernon water, or and loathe that I have to bathe in it. Michelle said, thank you. And he put the link back up.
Okay. Michelle got a well. Michelle has a well.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's what's up.
You're just going to say that's good living, Michelle. That's all. You know what?
So I want to end. I want to end the editorial that I wrote. Again, it's on the Black Westchester magazine Facebook page. You can read it in your entirety. Please feel free to leave any comments, good or bad, whether you agree or disagree, and why, to what I wrote. But I want to say that I had a few calls from a few people, stakeholders in Mount Vernon, and we need to have these difficult conversations. But someone said that they wanted to talk to me. And I said, you know what? I am willing to sit down with anybody. I'm willing to have these discussions. But this is the one thing. I will only have these discussions if you are willing, if everybody that's in the discussion is willing to listen and hear. Those are two different things. Listen and hear what everybody else is saying. The problem is in Mount Vernon, I'm sure everywhere else, a lot of people really want to see the betterment of Mount Vernon. But the problem is everybody has a different way of going about that they think it should be done to go about it, to get it done. And everybody has their favorite person that they think is the person that should head it or do whatever. If we gotta have these conversations, egos need to be checked at the door. Everyone needs to say what's on their mind, and everyone needs to be able to listen and hear. Just because you might think it's one way does not make your way right and does not make another person's way wrong. We need to listen to each other. Then and only then can we work together and can we move forward in doing it. It does not matter who's in City Hall. It does not matter who is the mayor or who's in City Council. And I quote Damon again, we asked the kids to stop the gang banging when the adults are doing adult gang banging in City Hall.
Hold on, but AJ, because I forgot what you said before, because I want everyone to listen to what you said a few minutes ago. People, more and more Mount Vernon residents who have a real stake in the city and love it are saying Black people can't run their own damn city, the city that they're the majority in. the performance of everyone, and maybe some of that comes here, but we're talking about our elected officials, has been atrocious. Has been atrocious. The level of professionalism is far below what we expect. The evidence that audits are not being filed, etc., that allegations of serious misconduct are not being investigated, whether it's in the police department and the library, that's unacceptable.
Yo, I watched the last 3 library trustee meetings. It was disgusting, yo. I could barely watch it. Like, I could barely watch. There's no way. People that were there, like Jesse and them that were there, that sat through it and was quiet. I don't know how they did it, because there's no way I could have sat through that. I was yelling at the screen from where I was. Our library. Do you know, like, most people don't think about how their library is run. And let me just say, I also want to say this too. So I talked to many people, and if anybody here can prove me wrong, please do. Many people throughout the county. I told them, name me 3 controllers in the city. Some people can name their own. Some. Everybody knew the name of the Mount Vernon controller. That's a problem. Nobody can name me 3 controllers that run through Westchester. And if anybody that's listening, if you can, please do. So I know that there's at least one person, because I'm saying nobody. Nobody I talked to can name me 3 controllers. And that's because controllers are not in the news, except for in Mount Vernon. Library trustees are not in the news, except for in Mount Vernon. That's a problem. So again, the residents do not get off the hook. The residents are you're responsible too. You created this. So that's all I'm going to say on that. Our guest did come, but before I get our guest on, I definitely wanted to leave this conversation on a good note. And yesterday, a resident from the city of Mount Vernon, a Mount Vernon native, he's an artist, and he has his work is showing in the gallery. We interviewed him yesterday, and there'll be a full interview. There'll be a full write-up. Oh boy, I switched my screen. Hold on. There'll be a full write-up in the paper, and there'll be a full video will be on the website eventually. But I definitely wanted to show a piece of it and show some love. This brother's very talented. He's doing a lot of work. Let's go into that.
This is MC. Check me out, Black Westchester. Let's get it, y'all.
And this one here is called
Miles Davis Blues. If you're familiar with Miles Davis, he had an album called The Blues Album. He had a blues album. So I want to, I studied him. So for those who don't know, like, how deep I go into my pieces, I don't know what other artists do. Every artist have their own technique on what they do. But I really get deeply engulfed into my projects and my concepts. So I studied him. I knew he was a great trumpet, but I studied him. I watched his documentaries. Read books and literature on him, so I got the feel to get to know him because, I'm gonna try to incorporate that into the piece. So when I discovered he had a blues album, I'm like, oh man, I want to do him in blue. Another monochromatic piece and different variations of blues, which is one of my favorite colors. And I want to exaggerate the trumpet. I didn't want the trumpet to be just typical regular trumpet that I know that he usually use. I wanted to exaggerate it. I wanted to have him upright, and I put his name in trumpet engraved in there, and it was like he's blowing to the heavens.
Yeah, that's. So I just want to show a piece of that. Bob, you can say a couple of words about the author, and then we're going into our guests. There are good things and that was a case in point. While I talk about all the bad things that happen, I do try to cover the people that are doing good things and the good things that are happening in Mount Vernon. And this is one of Mount Vernon's native sons. Go ahead, Bob.
So I just want to give a shout out to my man, MC Kev, who is just a visually arresting painter with a number of different pieces on display at the Urban Studio Unbound, which is in Yonkers at 16 Warburton Avenue, I believe. The exhibition will be running for the next 2 weeks, but beyond, I have to say it was a pleasure for AJ and I to meet one of the directors of the studio yesterday, Roddy Wildman, if I'm not mistaken, who is both a practicing artist and also one of the directors. And amongst other things, I was impressed not just with it's a free studio gallery, everyone. There is no admission. They have a lot of community-based programs, but I was especially impressed by the studio's commitment to up-and-coming Black artists who often go overlooked. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity, not only for MC Kev, but the entire Westchester County community to begin to celebrate the artistic achievements of our local homegrown talent and to, reflect on their vision. And so I urge people to go out, and hopefully we might even have the director and some artists, including Kevin, on the show if we can, MC Kev, if we could manage to work out some of the details.
Absolutely. So I did want to leave that conversation on a good note. That's that there are good people, there are good things going on. Mount Vernon is a very talented city. We try to highlight. He will be featured in the upcoming issue of the newspaper and on the website. But I showed that piece because his display at the gallery is only running another week or two, and everyone should go down and see that. It is the what was the name of the gallery again, Bob?
It's Urban Studio Unbound at 16 Warburton.
Okay, everybody needs to go check that out. That can, and this artist and this studio displays and showcases a lot of African American art, and that's another thing that's very important. So I definitely wanted to highlight that real quick. And anybody want more information, just hit us, and we'll make sure we give it to you. I want to welcome our next guest. He's been on the show before when he was running for Westchester County, the chair of the Westchester County Party. And then I just saw him as a special political analyst on News 12 election night. And I was already thinking about having him come on. And I thought no better person to help us come on and do a little election recap. How are you doing, Bill? And wait, say your last name again so I hear you say it, because I think I messed it up twice.
Well, the American way is Serratore, but if you want me to hit it, with the old school native way, it's Serratore.
Okay.
Serratore. We don't work on that, Bill.
But Serratore is cool.
Yeah, I just be like, yo, my man Bill, what's up, Bill?
You can do that too. That works also.
Yeah. So as I said, this is I mentioned, this is the last election. A lot of things went on. I did mention, and I'll say it again. We had a couple of firsts around the county. Vivian McKenzie became the first African-American woman mayor of Peekskill, and only the second Black woman to lead a municipality in Westchester. The first, of course, is Sean Patterson Howard in Mount Vernon. We had Lakeisha Collins Bellamy, who's the first African-American and the first woman of color to ever be elected Yonkers City Council president. Right outside of Westchester in the Bronx, we have Vanessa Gibson, first African-American and first female to ever be elected Bronx Borough president. And of course, one of the biggest was Eric Adams, is our second African-American mayor and our first vegan mayor. Maybe even in the state. I know in the city, but maybe in the state. But we did have, the election with Lakeisha Collins Bellamy, and I heard you speak about this on News 12, and the election with James Nolan and Ruth Waters. Usually because the Democrats outnumber Republicans, if you win the Democratic primary and no other Democrats are running on any of the other lines, you usually just ease on down the yellow brick road to the election, and it's like a foregone conclusion. Like the primary was the big thing, but in this election, the race, Lakeisha Collins Bellamy she was strongly challenged by a Republican and almost lost. And matter of fact, he was the lead most of the night. It was the next day when I woke up and saw that she actually won. I thought she was, and James Nolan unseated Ruth Waters, and turned one of the seats back red. And I said in the beginning, warning to all Democrats: the Republicans are coming. The Republicans are coming. The Republicans are challenging on a local level. They're challenging on the county level. They're challenging on the state level. And you see that they're challenging on the federal level with turning over the seat in Virginia, the governor's seat in Virginia. Made it a very close race in the governor's seat in New Jersey. I think Ohio, I think she was able to maintain her seat, the new Ohio governor. So, the Democrat, but the Republicans are coming, and the Democrats have taken the black vote for granted for far too long. And I don't know if you heard when I was reading my editorial, which was an open letter to Mount Vernon, there are, like a black-run city, there are black people saying, well, maybe we should let the white people run it because the black people ain't doing a good job. If you're mostly black town, you want a black-run city, but they're saying that, and that's a dangerous thing. And Republicans are trying to take back over. And under this Trump Republican party, it's definitely, I'm not against all Republicans. Like, I voted before there was Trump. I voted for the man who ran against Scarpino the first race, Bruce Bendich. I voted for the Republican because his answers were better as far as criminal justice reform and being hard on corrupt police officers and corrupt politicians. And Scarpino wouldn't answer any of those questions. So I definitely did never want him. So I voted for a Republican, but that was before the Trump Republican. So, let me let you have some say on what your take is of this last election. What's your first thoughts?
So first of all, thanks for letting me be here, and it's always a pleasure, and I welcome the opportunity. Serratore, that's right. And I do apologize for being a little late. I had a family obligation a little earlier today for my nephew, and family's tight with me, so I had to do that. So I appreciate you still allowing me to come on. So thank you. Yeah. Now to the matter at hand. It's a little bit all over the place, but let me start off by saying, from my perspective and point of view, as somebody who's worked, in the party since I had hair, which was
it was a long time ago.
No, it wasn't that long ago, but I mean, it was a while ago. So it was in the 90s, so I guess depending on your age, maybe that's ancient, but it doesn't feel like that long ago to me. But the notion, going back a year or two ago, the notion of, oh man, Westchester, we just turned the page. We've done great. We've eradicated the Republican Party. I always felt that was a little bit of a little too much hype, because they're not dead. They went to sleep a little bit, and they sat back, and now they're they regrouped, and they're coming, as AJ alluded to, and they're feeling good. They're feeling strong. They had some victories. They start to feel like they're a little bit vindicated. But let's also not, on the other side, let's not overhype that either.
Right.
The fact of the matter is that I think, generally speaking, registration wise, we are predominantly a blue county. As you get a little further north in the county, there are areas that are purple, but there is a little bit of purple within, like to mention the Jimmy Nolan Ruth Walter race. I mean, that was a purplish district. It's been red, it's been blue. Ruth ran, and lost for that. And then she came back. She managed to beat Gordon Burroughs. And now, in another tough race, Jimmy was able to unseat her. But I think there are a lot of dynamics at play besides the just straight up Republican Democrat. Jimmy Nolan is from, he's a fairly popular guy around town. He's well known. He had a personal tragedy with his brother. He started, most of his political sort of impetus came from, starting something to help out what happened to his brother. So, that's a feel-good story for anybody, regardless of if you're from Mars or anywhere else. I mean, that's a story that resonates with people. And he worked very hard, and he ran, he ran a hard campaign. So did Ruth. Ruth worked hard as well. But for this time, he had the edge there.
And it's a popularity contest too. He had the popularity.
A little bit, yes. I would agree with that.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Siri's chiming in. So anyway. So a little bit of some popularity there as well. But that is a district that that can flip. But I think that will embolden the Republicans. I think that there will be tougher races to come. But I'm not ready to say, oh, that was the bellwether. That's it. Next cycle, the Democrats are going to take a back seat. We're going to lose 7-8 seats. Right. I think there's a lot of. But
it should be a warning to not just take it for granted that you got.
That is correct,
and that's the point I was making.
And that is absolutely true, and you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, through the years, the Democratic Party takes their foot off the gas. They start to ignore certain communities.
They fumble at the 1 yard line a lot.
Yeah. That's a good way to on a Sunday. That's a good way to put it. Yes, we fumble at the 1 yard line quite a bit. So the lesson on the Democratic side is let's learn from that. Let's stay more active and stay involved, and let's not only get involved and start talking to the community and all of look. It's a big tent, but you can't just say it's a big tent. You got to talk to everybody that's in the tent, right? And so you can't just do it at election time. You got to do it all the time. And so I think that's the lesson for us as speaking from a Democratic Party side. We have to never take your foot off the gas. You got to always know that the other side is there watching, waiting. And as soon as you do even the slightest slip, they're going to jump and they're going to pounce. And we got to be ready for that. And then internally, the other mistake that I think we've made in some cases is that, same thing. It's a big tent, but we forget to really bring everybody into the conversation within our own tent.
Yes.
And you start to, and then we take our eyes off the prize and we start fighting with each other.
And one of my catchphrases is the Democratic Party is the only army that shoots his wounded, that kills his wounded. Never leave no man behind.
Yeah.
Democratic Party is the army that kills his wounded.
Yeah, and that I agree with that completely. And that's something, there is more that unites us than divides us. We all generally agree on most of the same principles. There's just a question of how far to the left right now do you want to go? And I think we got to take some stock in that too. We all want what we want, right? But sometimes we just let's not forget what the other side is looking at, And the most important thing is for us to stay united and to win. And even if we only get a half a loaf of bread today, that's better than no bread, right? And so we were on the minority. We were on the outside looking in, which I get. Now we got the majority of the seats, so you start to say, okay, we got to go, 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 go. But sometimes you got to walk before you run. You can't, and I know I don't want to be careful here. I'm not looking to agitate anyone. I'm not saying that I disagree with running, but sometimes you just have to, you gotta take stock of what's going on. And again, we'll use a football analogy. You don't want to be like, Daniel Jones on the Giants when you got to open straightaway, nobody in front of you. You're running as fast as you can and you trip yourself up.
Right.
Nobody hit, so those are the things we got to avoid doing.
A lot of our injuries are self-inflicted. That's true. I did want to point out a comment before we go further.
Sure.
So Sandy Barnaby said, AJ and Bill, you look gorgeous with that.
That was the important part.
Holla, there we go, right? Okay.
I want to make sure I put that out there.
Well, thank you for that.
Luis Cherico said the town of Mount Pleasant is red.
Eastchester.
And Stephanie Swan said, Sandy Barnaby, I agree. It gives them character. So there's a second one about them without here.
Thank you.
And Sandy said Democrats are on fire with that Build Back Better bill and the passing of the infrastructure bill. Jobs. I said this again in my open letter to Mount Vernon. A lot of people said we need to sit down and talk. And I said, I'm willing to sit down with everybody, but only if everyone in the room is willing to not just talk and not just listen, but hear what everybody else has to say. And I see that overall in our Democratic Party. We're talking at each other, but we're not listening and hearing what the other person is saying. And
right.
Our way is not always right. Your way is not always right. The bill, it takes the our combined efforts and ideas to make things great. And that's what the experiment of this country was. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. And, to throw another slogan out, I mean, one of Dr. Stephen Covey, who wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, one of those habits, which kind of struck a chord with me, when I was young, and I've never forgotten it. And I've used it more in business, but I think it's also very true politically speaking, and that is seek first to understand, then to be understood. I think you touched on it in a big way there, AJ, with you got to listen, and I'll go more simple than that. My grandmother used to tell me, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should listen twice as much as we talk. Right. So, and that's hard to do.
I heard that growing up too. Yes, absolutely.
We might have had the same grandmother,
We don't hear. See, I have a big mouth. It's hard for you not to listen to me, but are you hearing what I'm saying? No. Right. You understand what I'm saying? Like, so, yes. And it's like we come at each other with our differences first, where if we come with our commonalities, we can build. I mean, most people under the Democratic tent, there are some things they all believe. And we can start there and then branch out on the different ideas we have and what works and what doesn't work and move forward. But if my only coming to you is you don't do this, and then you come to me, I don't do that, and then we're reacting to that, we never get to the part, we can never build. You understand what I'm saying? And I see that with, not just in politics, but in our communities as well, too, sometimes these days.
No, I agree with you. I think that may be the single most important piece of it is exactly that. And I think that's the lesson. That's the takeaway from this past election. And we need to take that and run on that. And I do agree with the Build Back Better. I do think that's fire for us. I don't know if everyone, listening or in your audience has really done a deep dive on reading what's in that, but there's a lot of really, really good stuff that affect us all. And we should be able to run with that. That's one where we should run 100% and we won't fumble because we all drive the roads. We all cross the bridges. We need broadband access in all of the community areas. We need to build up the infrastructure everywhere. And this bill throws
We need
a
to
lot
replace the lead pipes, the lead infected pipes,
right.
pretty much everywhere.
Right. That affects the water. That's what I mean, Dr. Bob. It's this bill touches on the things that really matter to us all. And even beyond politics, it matters to us as human beings. I mean, we all need fresh air, clean water, garbage picked up, streets to drive on. Those are things where you say, and the best thing about that really is it takes a Republican mainstay argument away, which is always, all the Democrats do is, spend and tax. Well, here's a spend that you can look at and say, well, yeah, it is tax dollars, but I can see exactly where that tax dollar is going because the pothole in front of my street that I've been bitching about for the last 2 years finally got fixed because we got money in this infrastructure bill to do it. So I think that's going to be key.
My sister, who now lives in Loudoun County, Virginia, which is a wealthy county too, and she said their taxes are high, but she can go out almost every day and see where her tax dollars are being spent, and she does not mind spending them. You can see them building up. You can see them fixing. Right. You can see them repairing everything. She says she can identify where her tax. She can drive any given day and she can see where her tax dollars are being spent. And she said, "I don't mind spending them." The problem is when you're spending and taxes is going up and everything is not any better. You know what I'm saying? You're driving over potholes and got to get wheel alignments 3 times a year, and you know what I'm saying, and whatever.
I agree completely. Yeah. That's true.
Dr. Bob.
Yeah. I just wanted to take a moment out to extend a special congratulations to Jimmy Nolan. Jimmy is a friend of the show. He's appeared on the show several times, a few times even with his parents, to talk about the anti-gun violence program that they were launching following the unfortunate death of his brother. Even though, Jimmy's a member of the Republican Party, I certainly hope that we have an opportunity to dialogue with him as one of the leaders now in the forefront of amongst our elected officials, who's now in the forefront of the anti-gun violence thing. And I'm be curious to see what kinds of things he proposes and whether there's an ability for us to build common ground. But I wanted to ask Bill a quick question. Bill, one of the common explanations for some of the defeats that Democrats suffered on Tuesday was the belief that we were pushing too hard, too progressive, too left. And, there have been various rebuttals to that claim. But I wanted to know, what do you think here at the local level? How do you have local Democrats been guilty or susceptible to similar charges that we've been, pushing to left-wing a program? And if so, what were those issues in particular that might have led to Republicans a surge in Republican turnout?
Great question. In Westchester, I think Westchester Dems, to the extent that they were affected by what you just laid out, is driven by things that occur nationally. I really don't think we've, locally, what have we done locally? Okay. There's been a lot of work done on the county level to rebuild a lot of our things. You know, we got the pool opened on the sprain. We think Rye Playland was a mess. The airport was on the chopping block. You know, those were things that I think benefit the county, and we've done a good job at. I think, you know, working on the Beeline buses and those types of things have all been good. So it's not like anyone in the county was out there saying, hey, you know, I want to, you know, we're going to plant, you know, 50,000 apple trees and everybody can come pick all the apples for free and we're just going to pay for it. And like those ridiculous notions that get thrown out. I think on the local level, we've been fiscally responsible, but also been progressive in fixing so many of the things that have gone wrong. We had so many unions that were working without a contract under the Astorino administration for a long time. You know, taking advantage of the hourly workers and all of those types of things. So, you know, I don't think losses on the local level were necessarily because of that. And the other thing, just more general, I think sometimes we also have to take stock of, well, let's look at who all the candidates are. And, you know, going back to Virginia, you know, Terry Mcauliffe, there was nothing fundamentally that was, you know, dismissive about Terry Mcauliffe, except for this. You've been there a long time. You took your eyes off the prize, I think, in many respects. And you also, when you're there for a long time and you get tied to a lot of the older baggage, you know, so I wouldn't get so crazy. And I told this to a lot of my friends. Like, I'm not so ready to say, oh, that's it. Virginia's done. It's gone for good. I think if you have the right candidates with the right message and doing the right things, I think Virginia is the place we can win. And I think we will win again.
I think that the thing about Virginia, real quick, with Trump looming in the background on a threat of a run again, and one of the things after the 2020 election, he was going to the governors to try to overturn these elections. Getting any Republicans in, you know, is a dangerous thing if they're Trump supporters, which goes to why I said earlier, the people that that announced for governor here, Letitia James, Jamani Williams, and Astorino. And I was like, we absolutely, positively cannot let Astorino in because he is a Trump loyalist to the point that he got on CNN. And I can see, and I know Rob, and I can see that he knew the stuff coming out of his mouth wasn't true when he was saying it on CNN. Like, you can see, like, he had that little smirk. Like, you can see that he didn't even believe what he was saying on CNN about Trump. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, yo, but we can't, but he has his ship to Trump, and we cannot allow him, just for that reason of the whole thing with the overturning of the election and trying to put people in place now for the 2024 election. If he can't win outright, you know what I mean? So
yeah, no, I agree with you, and it's going to be interesting too. Also, I think to switch to a purely national level for a second, you know. There are a lot of Republicans that were actually looking at Ohio and places like that and say, oh, we can win by running away from Trump. And right. I think that's something on the Democratic side we got to be aware of, because they have usurped a lot of the dog whistles and the messaging of Trump. And if they can win without Trump, then we really got to dig down and stand up and step up, you know.
Right. The governor of the Republican candidate for Jersey, I think that they were saying, I think he was the one they were trying to align him more with Trump, and he was trying to get Trump. And I think the Republican from Virginia too. He warned the Trump people not to come out. He did not, because Trump was supposed to come out and rally for him at the end. And he's like, no, don't do that. Don't do that.
Please don't. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all true. So, you know, the bottom line is, locally, I think we're in good shape. I think, you know, this 4-year turn of this administration right now. I think you'll see a lot more. They can really turn it inward now. Latimer is already, term limited per his own, his own law, which I think is great. Not because he can't run again, but because by knowing that there's an end line, there's a goal line in sight with a clock that's ticking. Now you can really get down to the business and get to it. And I think we got a really good group of legislators right now. I was very happy with the turnout up and down the ballot. And yes, to whoever wrote in and said, yeah, we do have our little pockets we got to worry about. Eastchester, Mount Pleasant, those little places exist. But if we, as AJ said in the beginning, if we all are talking to each other, hearing what everybody has to say, and we put our collective strength and power together, man, there's no stopping us.
Now,
So-
Damon, I just want to say something because Damon hit me. I think he's trying to get in, but in case he's not, I know there's a group of people, and Damon can speak more to this. So with the Latimer administration, we were calling for more persons of color in positions of power. We're calling for more persons of color in throughout working for the county. And rightfully so, Latimer, and he took out advertisement at Black Westchester, showed that his administration is the most diverse probably in decades. But the problem was they were all mid-level, like, you know what I'm saying? So
right.
We still don't have persons in power. Like there are 3 commissioners in the corrections, probation, and the police. And they were like, can we get one being a person of color? Like, not just black, the Hispanic group of Hispanics too.
Sure.
Can we get just one person of color? Like, and it was like, that's their fight. I know a lot of people were discouraged with Latimer because that's what they were fighting for. They got more mid-level, even some upper mid-level, positions and stuff, but still not in the leadership positions that they were fighting for. So I know that that's one of the, and I said, if Damien gets on, I just want to say that if he doesn't get on, but if he does get on, I'm sure he will thoroughly talk more about that. Yeah.
Sure. I fully get that. I mean, and really, I mean, there are, I don't know to what extent everyone has reached out to sort of do those things, but I mean, we certainly have a lot of the elected leadership. I mean, I'm sure that who have very close ties to George and within the party.
Well, he had a panel. He had a panel together, and Damon and Kenneth Chamberlain and all of them sat on it, and they gave him names and stuff like that. So that's why they were frustrated.
So, but I mean, I do get that, and I don't disagree with that. I think that would be a very good thing to occur. And I would say stay on that. And I'm to whatever extent I can be of help in that. I mean, I'm chair of Mount Kisco and I am on the state committee. And I'm happy to, I got a big mouth too, not as big as yours, AJ, but I got a big mouth too. So I'm happy to help on that front and any front. I'm have been and always will be. I'm all about the party, and I'm all about Westchester and making it happen. I lived here a long time.
And one other thing, and then Bob, go through Bob next. One other thing I know that there was a issue with a lot of people. I know it started with people in corrections were fighting for it. The county employees, the females, if they, you're pregnant, you have a baby, there's no paid leave. You have to take your own time. And I know I talked to Christopher Johnson, the county legislator, and he was strongly for that because his aide, she had a baby and had to take her own time. So I know that was another thing that they were fighting for in the county. You know what I'm saying? So
Sure.
those groups of people are not happy right now. You know what I'm saying? And there's I know some of those issues. Luckily that didn't, the Republican candidate didn't speak a lot on those because she could have got votes by speaking on some of the things that,
Sure,
whether she did it or not, just the whole
Sure.
politics, so Dr. Bob.
Yeah, I was going to say, so Bill, look, I mean, I'm sure that you can appreciate the importance for historically marginalized communities to have persons from their groups represented in leadership, precisely because so many of the policy efforts seem not to manifest themselves visibly where people can really see. So I want to ask you, certainly in our county, one of the main issues was, of course, taxes, property taxes. I have followed the Latimer administration closely enough to know that there was a deliberate effort to keep taxes low, and County Executive Latimer really touted that accomplishment while not, cutting back on dramatically on major services. So I'm wondering, now that Latimer doesn't have to worry about prospects for re-election, what additional issues do you anticipate he's going to devote his energies to in his concluding term? And how do you think that's going to set up Democrats to compete in the next county executive election in 4 years, where probably, I guess, Rob Astorino may run, I guess.
And before you answer that, welcome to the show, my partner in crime, Damien K. Jones. There you go.
Hey.
It is not an optical illusion. The man is actually here. But I'm gonna let Bill answer that question and then let Damien kick it off. Go ahead.
So yeah, I think Dr. Bob, because I think George cares and is passionate about those issues, and I do think because he doesn't have to worry about another re-election, I think you'll see a lot more work on that front. And certainly, I know besides Chris Johnson and Chairman Boykin and Terry Clemens and a number of other people that are involved are also going to be having that issue as to the forefront. And let's not forget, Deputy County Executive Jenkins is on that administration. I'm sure I'm not speaking for Ken, but I'm sure he's going to be in the mix, certainly, to say the least, in the future. And I think that those I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think there will be a continued, effort and focus to spend more time on those issues and to make them better and to make them not only better, because better is the catchphrase, but they will be more inclusive to the needs at hand. I think that's the critical thing. It's one thing to say, well, we got to do more of this and more of that. But when you actually focus on it and put people and money behind it, and then now it's no longer we're working on this to make it better. It is, here is what we're doing, and here is the visual and actual confirmation of what's happening. So I think he cares passionately about that, and I think we'll see more on that front.
I want to say something and then let Damon go. So I brought up Damon. I had brought up persons of color in leadership positions in the Latimer administration, and there was a couple of comments, and I want to be clear. When Black Westchester says this, and we've been very clear on this, we would rather have persons of good conscience than a person of color. You know what I'm saying? Like color is not just the only thing. Because I saw a couple of comments like, we're just going for no, we want a person of color and a person of conscience. You know what I'm saying? Good conscience. We're not just, I tell people, being the first Black or getting a Black person in there is not a reason to vote for a candidate because they're Black or because they're woman. That's not a good enough reason to vote. They have to have something more to them. So when we say we're looking for people of color in leadership positions, we're talking about persons of conscience and we're identifying those particular persons as well when we come to the table.
I mean, look, West Virginia's lieutenant governor. I did not celebrate her election on my Facebook page, and she is Black, and I would not care in the least.
Who's lieutenant governor?
The lieutenant governor of Virginia is African woman. She's the first.
That was a Wild West photograph with that gun, man. I was like,
holding an AR-15.
Yeah, man. No, that was scary.
Yeah. Good, but that's the good point, though. When we talk about persons of color, we are talking about persons of conscience, not just someone of color, just for someone of color. So Damon, we're talking about all the elections. Do a recap of the elections, where we're talking about locally, and then we talked about Eric Adams a little bit, Vanessa Gibson, the Bronx Borough president, and Vivian McKenzie, new Black female mayor of Peekskill, Lakeisha Collins Bellamy, Black female Yonkers City Council president. I wanted to congratulate them, and of course Eric Adams, the second Black mayor and the first vegan mayor. I know you have a lot to say about a few things, so about the election, I wanted to pass the mic to you.
Yeah. So I just wanted to jump in. Everybody's laughing. Listen, Lattimore has a lot to do. He has a lot to do to show that his administration is really about equity. We still do not have a Black person in charge of one of the law enforcement departments. What the Lattimore, and I'm going to make this clear, and I hope somebody from the 9th floor and the 8th floor is watching. What y'all did to Deputy Commissioner Molina was horrendous, was straight up horrendous. So how can we explain, right, someone with 3 master's degrees, right, underneath someone who is rumored to have just a GED? So let's look at that. How do you explain Terrence Rayner, who has been commissioner of Mount Vernon Police Department, who has been chief of the DA's investigators, put in a position under a captain, someone that was a captain in County PD? How do you explain that? So we have to. So he has a lot of he has a lot of things to do, as far as I'm concerned. And showing that, especially in law enforcement, that he means what he says. That to sit there and to put up, we are the most what was the word? Diverse. Yeah, well, that's a lot of faces. That's a lot of faces. But technically you're not. Technically you're not. But if you look at the county government, where are the Black folks, right? The Black folks is in the Department of Correction and Department of Social Services. If you look at the rest of the departments, it's the majority white. Now, if someone says I'm wrong, then put the numbers out. Right? County police was historically 78% white men. Right? And according to the 1992 African American Advisory Board, Department of Corrections employed more Black men than any other civil service department in the county, and it's probably basically still that way. It probably dipped a little bit, but historically, county police, who was majority white, always got better pay than corrections. When now, after the county's own report, corrections is better trained than county police. But they make more money. Why? Because they're majority white. So Westchester County has a lot of work to do in saying it. But right, you're trying to tell me we can't find out of the 3 departments, right? We can't find one Black person that is qualified to be a commissioner. Right?
Hispanics in law enforcement are saying the same thing.
right? We can't find and going back to what they did to Molina, horrendous. And then they put someone who is not even a correction officer as first deputy commissioner. She has never had any type of correction experience. And then they skip over a black woman who came up the ranks and was warning. And then the what is said is that she didn't have a college degree. Well, neither does your commissioner. So I mean, when I see things like this, you know, it discouraged me to even take a part of the political process because it ends up being bullshit.
Bill, I want to just piggyback on Damon's remarks, and that there's really the problem here is one of two ways to really look at this. Either just 1 second, D. Either the decision to pass over highly qualified, and Bill, you're part of the inner councils apparently of the Westchester Democratic Party, but so I'm not making you responsible for this, but presumably.
Thank you.
I mean, for many of us who are on the outside looking in, the most likely explanation that is in keeping with the historical experience of African Americans and people of color. Hey, this is another example of a deliberate act of discrimination, especially when you take into consideration the disparity in qualifications that Damon just highlighted for us. And the real question is, if it isn't overt discrimination, what's the explanation? And what is the county going to do to break with this pattern? Because, you know, all across the United States now, it's been very obvious that African-American turnout was lower. And the most likely explanation is because people once again feel like our issues, our particular issues, are being given short shrift, and it does not bode well.
Let me just say. So, Bill, we're not asking you to answer for the. We're not asking you to answer for the county. No. You know what I'm saying? We're having a conversation that includes you, but I don't want you to feel like you got to answer for the county.
I just want, and this is the first time I ever said that, because I've been working with the Lattimore administration since day one. Right. And I've been, and let me make it clear. And it's not, I've been giving my time going over, leaving my job at 7 a.m. and then going over to the 9th floor at 9:30 and sitting there sitting in his conference room to 11 or 12 o'clock and then driving an hour home from work. Never asked for overtime, never told them to give me a green sheet, never did, in faith that they were going to do the right thing. Right. And in faith. I sat on, I was on his transition team. I'm not talking just to be talking. I was on his transition team. I sat in his meetings once a month for 4 years. I was on the police revisionary, whatever they call it. We're still trying to wait for them to really take action on the recommendations that was actually made that's under the county policy. So I'm just not saying this from somebody on the outside. I'm saying this from somebody that put my damn time in. Put my time in, my own personal time in, thinking that they were going to do the right thing. And I see what Nicole Benjamin says, well, DSS hired a black commissioner, but people under Section 8 are still getting treated poorly. Right? People in Section 8. The TLC also, and she has a big lawsuit. Dow Davis is suing the county for millions. So just having a black person, like we said, we need people of conscience. I just don't throw black faces in places and think that they're going to do right by our community. See, enough is enough, because we give our votes faithfully for the Democratic Party. See, and Negroes are still too scared to break away from the party. See, after a while, if you're a domestic violence victim, that's what we're treated like, domestic violence victim. We get smacked around all the time, and then when they want something from us, they come baby us up and hug and kiss us, and we fall for the nonsense. As black people in Westchester, we have nothing. Nothing. Look, just look around. I don't care if you're driving a Mercedes Benz. I don't care if you have a little nice house. In the whole, we have nothing as a people. And we continue to give our vote for nothing.
That's
And the
why.
sad thing about it, the last almost 30 years, we had a black person in charge of the Democratic Party. And look at Mount Vernon. It's a damn mess. It's a mess. It's still a mess.
That's why I'm against the stranglehold of the two-party system. We need that third party. We need some powerful third parties to step up. I mean, we need to empower them. I mean, Damon and I tried to start we started the Mount Vernon Independence Party in 2015. When the Westchester chair died, that fell apart. But we were building that up. We were building that up to give people an alternative to you have Republicans that voted for Biden because they just couldn't get with Trump, and there was no alternative. They didn't want to vote Democrat, and you got Democrats that are voting for whoever because they can't vote the other way. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like we need that. And I've always been against the stranglehold of the two-party system, and I've always pushed for, which is not popular, open primaries where everybody can vote in the open primary. I think those were even the odds and level some of the playing fields and stuff. If you're a Republican in this county, look at that. You should want open primaries because you don't get to vote in the Democratic primary, so you don't get to pick who the person is going to be in the general election. You know what I'm saying? With an open primary, you would get to vote too. So I mean, it's not even a Democratic thing. I'm just speaking from the third party person.
Right. Well, certainly, I mean, as someone who's just a believer in democracy in general, obviously, the more parties, the better. I mean, you look at some of the other nations in the world where they have to build consensus. It's a parliament, so that you get a multitude of different groups, in order to build that consensus. And a lot of what Damon was saying sort of touches back on how we started earlier tonight, AJ. We were talking about we got to hear what's going on, even though we're all sitting in the same tent. We got to hear. You can't just listen, and you've got to do something about it. You've got to. It's one thing to say, yeah, we got you, we hear you, but do you hear me? Do you understand what I'm trying to put forth here? And I think that's certainly something that we need more of in the Democratic Party, and I think we need that in all facets of life. But Damon, I agree with you, and it's that I'm not as involved in the and I don't mean this facetiously, but I mean I'm not in the weeds as you are in that portion of the county. But I certainly agree with everything you're saying. So I don't know what the definitive answer is, other than we should harness all the power we have, all of those voices that we have, whether they're Black elected officials or other elected officials of character who just agree with, let's just do what's right. And that's where we got to make the push. So I'm with you on that. I'm with you solid on that.
It's crazy because when we tried to just start the Westchester Black Political Conference, not anything to agitate the Democratic Party, but to galvanize Black and brown people throughout the county so we could really address issues, focus on issues. We didn't really even get support of the Black politicians
because the Democratic Party told them to stay away from us.
And we didn't get support of the Black politicians or either the Democratic Party. And that's crazy because we're sitting here and saying, look, we want to address specific issues that are going on in the county, that are still going on in the county. And what's crazy about it is that when you look at the 1992 African American Advisory Report, right, and if you go through every topic that they discuss, The issues, we're still dealing with the same issues. We're still dealing with housing issues. We're still dealing with education issues. We're still dealing with law enforcement issues. We're still doing unemployment, lack of black businesses. We're still dealing with all these issues. So from 1992 to we're damn near in 2022, we're still dealing with issues. Look what happened. Like she brings Stephanie Swan brings what happened in Greenberg. How do you get rid of all these housing for poor and senior people? And there's no outrage. Where are they going? Mount Vernon, right? Because nobody else is accepting him. Where are they going to go? You're gonna pile them in Mount Vernon again, and put the burden on those taxpayers. I mean, Westchester has to literally they have to literally start being serious and stop using symbolism and start putting some substance forth, or people are not going to come out and vote because they don't see anything. It's nice to have all these little black faces in places, and that's great, but that's what we've been falling for. But technically, on the bottom line, when you talk to the average person, their life ain't changed a bit. Actually, they might just tell you it was better under Trump.
Yeah.
Because they knew what they got.
Well, I don't
I
mean,
what the hell that was, Damon, other than a fright every night and stress. But you know what? I'll let
you know what they got. At least they got entertainment, right? At least they got entertainment. Listen. When you're giving nothing, but you're giving some candy to make it taste good. At least you can say that when you just giving nothing and saying accept it.
Yeah. No, listen, it's look.
And Trump didn't promise black people stuff and didn't give it to him. He just didn't promise black people stuff.
Exactly.
Well, look, the whole. I'm getting myself in trouble here, but you know, you're absolutely right in that systematically, a lot of the things that go on politically are just inherently broken, and it is a system that really it lends a hand, but it doesn't give you a help up. And so the handout is, look, fundamentally speaking, nobody wants a handout. What you want is to get a leg up, and you want to be able, and the things that we put forth, at least on the surface, are supposed to do that. But we do the first step, and then going back to where we started before, AJ, we fumble at the 1 yard line. We have to stop that. And I do think there's a way for that. We've got to get the whole of, on the county level, we've got to get the whole of the legislative body to hear this, understand it, and it's got to be a push for all. And it doesn't matter. We have to move away from, oh, well, up in the northern end of the county, that doesn't play. Or, oh, in the southern end of the county, we got to say this because otherwise they won't come out. Those are things that have to stop. What we got to do is it's got to be, let's understand what the things are that need to be done, and then let's do them. And they need to be done unilaterally across the board. Now, I just said that. How do we do that? Obviously, it takes a lot of work. I know you've been trying. I know others have been trying, but we can't give up. But maybe what we just got to do is lock arms a little harder, and maybe we got to increase, the masses, and I don't mean just the Black community or the Latino community. I mean the whole of the community. And, like I said, to whatever extent I can avail myself and be of use and use the big mouth and the short Italian guy's body, I'm happy to do.
Let me just say, so there's a couple of things I want to comments that what going up when you wrote, it said basically they're saying all the systems are working exactly as they're designed to, and we must address that. You know, the systems were designed to oppress people, to certain things historically. So we won, but coming to the close of the show, because I mean, this conversation we could have for another 5 hours. Where do we now? How do we move forward for the Democratic Party right now? How do we move forward? You said we shouldn't look at this as a bellwether, but the Republicans are coming. Like I was joking, the Republicans are coming. The Republicans are coming. They are coming. But how do we address that? And I also wanted to point out, you know, while I'm not saying maybe this is not the answer, maybe this is the answer, it explains why you had some people and Congress people, including Jamal Bowman, saying, no, we're not going to vote for this thing. We're not even going to support that if you don't give us these things that we've been asking for forever. We've been asking for these things forever. And it's like, you know, being on the outside saying we need these, and now we have a few people in there that you need their vote to get your thing through that we all need, but we're not going to vote for that if you don't give us these things we've been asking for. Now, I'm not sure, you know, where we, you know, some people think that's too far, but it explains why the Jamal Bowmans and the some of the progressives feel that way, because we've been promised. We've been, you know, had the carrot in front of your face, leading you. We're going to give you this. If you do this, we'll give you this. If you do this, we've been doing all those things. We ain't get it yet. You know what I'm saying? So people are like, okay, we're going to put a halt to the system. We're not even going to vote the regular infrastructure thing in unless you give us these things. And maybe that's why that's what that leads to when you're not being heard. Like Martin Luther King, they say Martin Luther King said the riot is the language of the unheard. Well, they've gone unheard. So they're like, yo, this is their form of rioting. We're not going to support that. And maybe that's that. But where do we move from here? Big Ten is one thing, but if we're not hearing each other, then what's the purpose of having a Big Ten? I mean, it puts you out in a disadvantage. The Republicans are on the same page. We're going to do this, bang, 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 right, wrong, or indifferent. We're going to rock with this dude, bang, 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 right, wrong, or indifferent.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, the old adage is kind of true. You know, Republicans fall in line and Democrats fall in love. You know, we fall in love with ideas. We fall in love with things. We fall in love with a certain person or a group. But it comes at what expense, right? So fighting, I fully get what Bowman and Ocasio and all of them did, because you're right. They're like, look, I've been talking about this. I got elected initially because of this. And now you're telling me I can't do this because then we lose that. And so, okay, they stuck their flag in the ground and said, okay, this stops here. Now, I don't know. I agree with the philosophy, but I don't know that you want to bring the whole system to a halt, because as we said, the infrastructure stuff is equally as important that's in there. And God knows we need that in all of our communities. But to the larger point, you know, that's another moment where you got to have the leadership of the party. You know, look, Mondaire Jones is a freshman member of leadership, newly elected, came in the same time as Bowman, right? So I don't know to what extent their two camps have spoken, not spoken, or whatever, but certainly there can be. Let's find out how we get together on this.
I will say this. Mondaire's been here, and Mondaire is also one of the ones that was holding out, too. Mondaire's included in that group of congressmen that was holding out, too.
But he voted for the bill in the end.
But yeah, he voted for it in the end. But
right.
he was one of those that was speaking up for all of those different things as well. Maybe not as loudly and as but he was on the show talking about we're going to get some of those things. And
sure.
You know,
no, I mean, I think don't misunderstand what I'm saying.
Let me play devil's advocate. Let me play. So I hear what you said. Maybe don't hold it up because we need these other things. But because we need these other things, if you're not willing to throw my things in now, when we to these things we need, once you get them, how I know you're gonna you're gonna do?
No, I just want to disagree. I think I think the progressives made a terrible mistake because they could have voted. See, the House. See, because look, it's different when you're dealing. You have the House, right, and then you have the Senate. The House can pass anything, right? So if they would have passed the first bill, got that through, they could have passed another bill and got it, and they would have still faced Manchin at the end of the day, right? So if you would have passed one and then quickly passed the next, right? At least you would have had one done. Now they have none done. Right?
No, I agree.
So now they have none done.
No,
and they
no, there is one bill that was passed on Friday. Let's be clear.
Right, but it passed to the House, right? But the House
no, it had cleared the Senate. It cleared the Senate first, Damon. Because that particular bill came back the other way. The
right.
Senate,
okay.
Which
one?
The
infrastructure bill had passed the Senate first.
No, right. But they knew. Wait a minute. So they wanted when it failed, they wanted both bills together, right? So which one of the ones they wanted together?
They wanted the infrastructure bill and then the Build Back Better, which focused more on social programs.
Right. And then
so the fear is that the infrastructure bill is an easy pass, but the social spending part is more questionable. And they were trying to use the leverage by holding on to the infrastructure bill.
Yeah, but that wasn't going to, but that ain't work, right? So Biden needed a win, right?
And some people feel like that cost the Virginia governor.
Exactly.
One of the things that cost the governor, had he had that victory before the election, that might have helped the Virginia governor a little bit.
Exactly, because if one thing, the Democrats have to get their message together, right? They have to understand how to communicate. For some reason, they don't know how to communicate. The Republicans take over the narrative all the time, and unfortunately, they've taken over the narrative of the Build Back Better to mean only Black and immigrants and all that will benefit from it. So they ignite the base. They have to start learning how to message better and get out there and make it clear that what's in that bill benefits every American, benefits everybody, not just Black. See, the Republicans just they go and they come in, they're taking it from you and white people.
Well, your suburbs, they're gonna take over your suburbs.
Well, that's it, because they stay on message. You're absolutely right. They stay on message and they drive it home, and they've gotten really good at blowing those dog whistles that make people go, "Oh, I don't want that." And I agree. The Democratic Party on the national level, we do not communicate the bare essentials really well, and it gets lost in the shuffle. And you're absolutely right, and that would help. Now, I'm not sure I have, or any of us have what the right answer is there, other than we recognize what the problem is, and we need to send, we need to collectively send that message up to the people that we all can reach and say, you gotta net this out in bite-sized pieces that the average person gets it and they understand what the feature, function, and benefit is of this bill. Exactly. And that's not happening. Exactly.
And it's crazy that Manchin is holding it back and his state needs it the most. Right. And his state, and he's holding it back, and nobody like what's up with the Democrats, right? Because if someone goes against, if you're a Republican candidate, right, or you're a public elected official, you know not to go against the Republican Party, right? Or Trump's going to come out against you. They're going to find somebody to run against you, right? And they're going to dog you out. Democrats don't even do that. Manchin is holding up anything, and maybe Jamal Bowman and a couple other people have spoken out against them, but the state Democratic Party in Virginia has been completely silent. And take them out, run somebody young against them, run a Black woman, a white woman, a Hispanic woman, run whatever you want against them, and challenge him on the issues. Nobody in the Democratic state of Virginia has stood up and challenged this man. Like, it's crazy. But
you're right, Damon.
On a local level, We have no excuse. Most of these cities in Westchester are run by Democrats. Have a Democratic majority on the city council, and these cities have Democratic mayors. There's no excuse. There's no excuse on the state level. There's no excuse on the state level why we're not passing legislation, right? We had to wait. We had to wait till George Floyd got killed to get the bill that should have been passed from Eric Garner. Right? If people wasn't burning and breaking windows down in Manhattan, they still wouldn't even pass the bill for the bill that they should have passed for Eric Garner. They passed it when it's George Floyd, and they said, well, they're doing it for George Floyd. No, but that bill been sitting on your desk since Eric Garner died.
Let me as we come to the close of the show, let me ask, the Republicans are doing everything now. Everything they did in this election was to set them up for next year, for the midterms, and for the presidential election, or the next election. What can you, in your opinion, what in this election went well that can set us up, for the upcoming elections, and what didn't go well that could hurt us in the upcoming elections and others?
So I think what went what went well was that we saw that even with the hard push that the Republicans put in, at least on the Democratic side, we were able to hold firm. But the lessons of that, as we've been discussing, are it was a soft victory in many respects, because we got to solidify and do a much better job. And quite frankly, there were also an awful lot of people who stayed home and didn't vote, and that's always a problem, which tells me that we as a party did not electrify our base, right? If we have the advantage, right, and Latimer won, he got 62% of the vote, Schulte gets 38% of the vote. She didn't spend hardly that much money.
And nobody knew who she was.
And nobody knew who she was. But their 38% is largely, that's the 38% of the rank and file who are energized and came out to vote. We got to get like that. And the way to do that is we gotta, as we've been saying all night, we got to hear twice as much as we talk, and we got to put an action plan together, and then we can get to that point, and maybe we turn the tables back again.
Because if Latimer doesn't have a strong showing this time, the Democrats could lose the county exec position for the next election.
They said Latimer's only doing 2 terms, so this.
But if he doesn't. I'm saying if he doesn't perform well this term, he could set it up that
I think the Democrats are going to have a problem anyway, because if you look at the numbers, right, even the Working Families Party didn't even show out good. The Conservative Party, for third
outperformed the Working Party,
right? Yeah. They did their thing, and we had to congratulate them on doing the job well done. So we have to understand and remember, Reverend Richardson said this when he was on our radio show. He said we have to get what we could get in Westchester as fast as possible, because the tide is going to change. The tide is going to change back. People are going to start forgetting Trump, right? Because you can't run on Trump anymore, right? No. People going to start forgetting Trump, and they're going to go back to their old tribes. Right, and that's what's going to happen. Remember, independence is usually the swing vote in Westchester County. So if you're not coming to the middle, and if you got somebody that's going to come up, a young person that's Republican, that's speaking the language of the middle, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a problem in Westchester County. And it's going to swing back to where it used to be, a more even county. But if you want to keep it, man, y'all got to start doing something in the county. You have to start doing things in the county, putting some things up to vote in the county and in the state too. In the state too.
I just want to show this real quick. So John and Jackson said, absolutely, I worked this election and only had 8 people show up to that district to vote. 8 people. 8.
Exactly.
Now listen, that's valid, man. Because
Bob is trying.
I'm sorry.
Bob was trying.
I mean, Bill, this is an issue that I raised for you as someone who has also had some experience in local elections. I participated since about 2011 when Johanna Edwards ran for mayor of Mount Vernon. The pattern that I have repeatedly seen is that the party continues to ignore the need to build up its internal staff, and every time the election come around, they're hiring all kind of outsiders who don't have shit to do. These people do not know the communities that they are trying to craft campaigns for. And the bulk of the monies from these campaigns, I don't care which campaign it is,
Keep talking. It
always goes to some high-paid lawyer. The campaign only got $30,000. And off the rip, $5,000 goes to a lawyer, $5,000 goes to a PR guy, some other consultant, and then they're scrambling around. You're trying to get people to go out and do door knocking for free. This model does not work.
You're 100% right. You're 100% right.
I don't get it.
No,
because the party leadership got to say this. We have to stop this. There must be investment in building up a cadre of grassroots organizers who live in these communities and let them be in the forefront because we know the issues.
And not only that, that also builds us up. That becomes the future leaders. That becomes the, those people that we get involved at that level, on the grassroots level, they're the ones that come up. And we got a lot of young people now that are getting involved, but you're absolutely right. We need to let them have a bigger say. And I agree with you. We got to get rid of a lot of these. You're right. Everybody raise 30, 40, $50,000, and then they go hire one of these national campaigns to come in and they run on a national level. I mean, that's why Noam Bramson had a hard time in his county executive race, because he's talking about guns and abortion and those things. And Rob Astorino's coming and talking about, hey, I'm going to hold the line on taxes. I'm going to make sure that your money's, and guess what? When it's local, you're like, yeah, that's my money, right? So that's a message that works. So Dr. Bob, you're absolutely right.
Norm Branson blew a perfect opportunity. Like it was almost like he was running for Congress or something. Like he wasn't running on anything local. It was the most craziest thing. I
like Noam. I think he's a smart guy. I think he's been a great mayor. But I mean that was just I think the advice he got from political operatives was incorrect, my opinion.
And what Bob is talking is correct, because we had a mayoral candidate that had people talking about trying to run his candidacy, like the Biaggi campaign. Biaggi's district doesn't cover the south side of Mount Vernon, so you can't run her state senate. You can't run a Mount Vernon mayor campaign like a state senate campaign. You know what I'm saying? Like, and there was outsiders that came in from the city and other places and were paid thousands of dollars, and they didn't have any touch with the community and what goes on in this community. And
I mean, I'm going to say this. The people who participate in this show and make this show happen, and the viewers, we're in this fight every day, 24 hours a day. We're not going nowhere. We live in these communities. We're organizing all the time with $0. And if our Democratic leadership will wise up a little bit and stop channeling all the money into let me step back, Bill. The Republican Party infrastructure, on the other hand, does not just include political operatives. It includes a whole series of cultural institutions like radio stations. They're operating through their churches, so they're able to get their message out through their network well before the election even jumps off.
Mm-hmm.
And you want me to tell what? We don't have the same thing here.
No. We don't. We have the same thing. It's just not utilized because
No, that's what I meant, Damon.
Because people. Because first of all, there's a whole bunch of hate in the Democratic Party, right? There's underlying hate because people want to be at a certain status level in the party and don't do shit, but they want to keep that status, so they hate on other people in the Democratic Party, you know. So
and then you had Democrats. You had Democrats that were told not to come on our show.
Exactly. I said
come on the show that's doing the work for not to come on our show.
Right. I always say Westchester Democrats eat their own. Right. They eat their own all the time just to maintain the status quo. And this is why nothing is ever going to change in Mount Vernon. Nothing is never going to change countywide for Black people as a whole, because there's a certain group of Black folks that are always going to eat. Right, and they're always gonna give this illusion to the Black people that's trying to get up and that's starving that you can make it too, but they don't want them to make it, because if they make it, they won't eat, because some of these people never had a real job,
or they'll eat less. Right.
Other than they'll eat less, but they never had a real job, so they don't even understand. They don't even understand they don't get it. You know, like Reggie Lafayette said to me one day, he said, "Man, you're going to have a big pension." I said, "Yeah, Reggie, but I took a test to get my job. I went through academy to get my job. I didn't get appointed. I didn't kiss ass, right? I didn't do all those things that the political structure wants you to do for a job. I went through academy. I took 3 tests." Right, so we have to change the structure, and we have to attack it. But until then, I mean, you know, they're going to keep on putting their little puppets in place. They're going to keep on doing that, and nothing's going to change. And then they're going to tell you, oh, they're going to give you a whole bunch of symbolism, but doesn't really help Black people at all.
And the people that are speaking up for the opponents to them, when they're strong, they end up getting jobs.
Yeah.
So then that silences them. you can't speak against. So
yeah.
It's like it was an old movie. A guy went back out in the streets and he was looking for all the activists and stuff in the 60s. He said, "Yo, where all the brothers at?" He said, "They all got government jobs." So like they're not fighting anymore. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So,
exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
you know, all I can say is I've been in the party for a long time, but I am not a recipient of those jobs, and I'm not in this. I've never been in this to get a job. I do this because I actually care. I know a lot of people probably listening and saying, "Yeah, Bill's full of it and this and that," but that's the God's truth, and you could ask around. I do this because I care. I do it because I genuinely like the work, and I have the passion and the conviction of my belief structure, and that's my guiding light. So all I can say is, you know, I'm happy, you know, to use my voice as best I can. Believe me, I've been taking notes tonight. I'm going to bring this stuff up to the people that I interface with.
Good luck.
And, you know, to the extent, you know, if you want me to come out to something, you know, all you got to do is call. I will be there. I don't know. That may hurt you more than help you, because not everybody, thinks I'm a voice of good, but I'm there to help.
Hey,
well, let me tell you, I conducted the interviews for both candidates for the Westchester County chair, and I didn't know neither one of y'all. I didn't have no fight. I didn't have no history with you, no history with Suzanne. But interview-wise, I looked you in your face. I asked you questions. I looked her in the face. I asked you questions. You were the more authentic candidate. And so was Marianne Carr. You know what I'm saying? But you know, you just didn't win. But you know what I'm saying? But you were the most, like, I mean, this is how I get to know people. You know what I'm saying? I do this with them. You know what I'm saying? I talk to you. I looked you in your face. That's why I had you back on today. And no disrespect, because I don't really get calls back from her anyway, but she's the chairperson. I didn't have her on. And I'm sure after I say this, I may never get a call back from her. But I had you on.
Or she'll call you as soon as we're done and
Oh,
say,
yeah,
"I'll be on the next one."
Yeah, that was yeah, that might happen too. That happens a lot too. So we're over the time, but we being online, we can do what we want.
Yeah. No, don't get me wrong. I mean, I get along with her. I get along with everyone in the party, whether it's reciprocal or not. That doesn't matter to me. I'm in it to do the work. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to listen, and to the whatever extent I can be of use, I'm all in. I'm all in.
Last words. What would you say either about the past election, about the upcoming election, where we need to go, and your message? What do you have for the people?
I think our message is we need to learn from what just went on in Virginia, Ohio. We got to take a look at inwards a little bit, and now's not the time to lighten up. We gotta tighten up, to use an old Archie Bell Drells song from back in the day. We gotta tighten up, and we have to we gotta harness our message, and we absolutely, as we've been talking about tonight, and to Damon's point, we've got to do a much better job in social services and outreach, and really do the work and have true inclusion, not just photographs, I guess.
Dr. Bob.
Bill, it was a pleasure having you on the show. We appreciate your insights, and certainly hope that you will share some of our recommendations and gripes with the powers that be, so that we can have a Democratic Party that's going to be able to serve the interests of all Westchesterites, and no one's going to resent it and feel exploited and used.
Damon.
Hey, Bill, man, it's great seeing you again, man. I hope this don't put a target on your back coming on.
Oh yeah. Hope
if it does, it does. You know what?
Listen, man, we only a phone call away, man. So we got your back, brother. It's
vice
always
versa.
It's always great to see you, man. I'm glad that I had to come on, man, and say what's up to you. And I usually don't. I didn't do a double today, so I was able to jump on, man. But I think the Democrats got to wake up. They really got to wake up and start giving the people substance, and instead of all this symbolism, because we could cut through the symbolism real quick. We could cut through the BS. And the whole thing is, we have to educate the people. We have to educate the people, and it's all about educating the people and being with the people, man. Because it's just, we just got to do something. I don't understand it. I don't understand how they have, Ruth Waters lost, right? Which that was probably a race that she shouldn't have won. I didn't know why. I don't know. Did the Democrats mobilize around her?
No, she had a very good campaign. We were, she had everybody involved. There was definitely a race that we knew was going to be tough for her. And,
Right.
We talked about it a little bit earlier, but, look, Jimmy Nolan worked hard also, ran an excellent campaign, popular guy with a very righteous, cause, for some of the work that he did for his brother.
Mhm.
And, Jimmy's, look, he's a Republican, but Jimmy's a solid citizen.
I have nothing bad to say about Jimmy, and officially congratulations on your race. On you doing the race. But what I'm just saying is just the fact that Reggie always said it, and which the numbers show: if Democrats vote, Democrats win. So if we're not able to look at our weak areas, right? Because a lot of the legislators did not have any opponents, right?
No, there were 10. Right. There were only 7 legislative races that had opponents. So you're right.
Exactly. So, they saw which one was the weak ones, and shout out to Damon Marr for winning again, after being maligned and everything again, and he still won. But it has to be a mobilization, to remain in control, because if not, right, the Republicans is going every 2 years, the Republicans is going to pick off a seat.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, we have, like you said, it all goes back to the messaging has to be more concise across the board, and we need to energize our side. The Republicans were energized and they came out to vote. Now we're lucky that we've got the registration advantage, but you can't take that for granted. You can't sleep on that. Exactly. We still gotta do the work, and we gotta show people that we earn the right to be in this position of leadership. And while we're in this position of leadership, here's what we're doing, not we're thinking about and talking about this or that. It's got to be concise. Here's what's been done. Here's what we're doing, and this is where we're going.
Right. Absolutely. Wow.
I'm sorry, AJ, damn it, there's something I wanted to share with you, Bill, before you leave. I'm gonna just share it on screen. And Bill, you take a good look at this image. This must have appeared in American Cartoon Political Magazine around the 1920s. And it speaks to the continuity with which the Republicans have successfully exploited concerns about sinister forces indoctrinating our children.
Yep.
Today, it's critical race theory. When I posted this to my account, I said, watch out, everyone. Save your children. The left-wing educators are coming to indoctrinate them with critical papacy theory. And if you look closely at the symbolism here, you can see this was, trying to tap into anti-Italian sentiments that were, and anti-Catholic sentiments that were especially high at an earlier period. I just wanted to share that because I think it does help everyone to put some of these kind of appeals into perspective.
No, I appreciate that. And it's funny. I've talked about this, and by no means, I'm going to talk about it again right now, but by no means does it come anywhere near as close to what went on in the African American community or anywhere else. But I, as a child, I'm first generation. My father came from Italy, was a barber in a small town across the river in Rockland County in Nyack. And when I was a kid, on numerous occasions, depending on what part of town I was playing in with my friends, I was told, you people got to get back and stay over on your side of town, and I was called all the other fun things that everybody likes to associate with Italians. And that at an early age resonated with me, and I haven't forgotten that. And it's still alive today. And what I get personally ticked off as is a lot of Italian Americans have forgotten, and a lot of them are now, with what you just brought up with this critical race theory, a lot of them are like, yeah, well, when we were young, it was this way, and that was they forget, and especially on the more towards the immigration side, they say, oh, well, we came here legally. Well, what are you talking about? Well, we got on a boat. Yeah, you got on a boat. You came to Ellis Island. Ellis Island was a processing center. So you were hoping when you got on the boat in Italy or wherever it was, and you got here, you hoped that at Ellis Island, they said, all right, man, you can go to Manhattan now. Because otherwise, you went back on the boat. So you were not here legal. You still had to get processed. And so that gets lost, and it really aggravates me. But to the larger point, you're right. That's the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that the Republican parties and others use. And we are the targets of that as Democrats. as African Americans, as Latin Americans, and all the other minorities that they don't like. And we got to gear up and fight that. That's the primo fight right there.
Yep. Yep.
Absolutely, Bill.
But thank you for sharing that. Thank you
As we
for
come
letting
to the
me
close of-
speak on that for a minute, and for being on the show. I really appreciate the
Bill.
opportunity.
Thank you for coming, man. We
Yes,
appreciate it.
Bill, we enjoyed the dialogue, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say much more after that. Appreciate you coming on the show. I will just add when you put that image up, Bob.
Yes.
One of the things that was against Ruth, they put a campaign out. It was a big hashtag racist Ruth. They were trying to make her out to be a racist, and they would tag Black Westchester to try to get us to repeat half of that stuff. I'm not saying it was Nolan's camp. I'm just saying I don't know who it was, but there was a big campaign to beat her out as a racist to the Black community. And I will say another thing about James, regardless of his brother's situation, James was in the community a lot, doing things, giving out masks, feeding people and stuff. Yeah. And I don't think the community knew Ruth. And I think that's the problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, they knew him. He's in the streets. He's, you know what I'm saying? He comes to gun violence things in Mount Vernon. He was in the streets and he was doing a lot of stuff. And I think that helped a lot too, regardless of the party. You know what I'm saying? They knew him, and we got to do better supporting our candidates and getting them known and galvanizing around our candidates if we want them to win. So the Republicans do that. We don't do that. But I want to thank everybody for tuning in. This has been our little election recap. This is Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics radio show. We are on every Sunday, 6 to 8 on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button and like it. You know what I'm saying? And share it with everybody else. Until next week, peace. You are now tuned into the People Before Politics radio show, brought to you by the good folks at
Black Westchester. Black Westchester. Black Westchester. Black Westchester. Check the newspaper. Black Westchester. Black Westchester. Black Westchester. Check the newspaper.
Real talk for the community since 2014.